Anybody? Anybody here?
No, nothing at all. There's a lesson on the milk.
I know you're here somewhere. I can hear you talking.
And the queue time are registered in the same.
Hello?
What do you want?
Refill?
Oh, what?
Yeah, could you fill it up?
Crackers.
Yeah, and I like the ones with the little seeds on top.
You're kidding, right? Hey, Sid, come check this numbskull out.
What? I'm with a customer.
And look what he brought us.
Crackers, you gotta be kidding me. This is the worst stereotyping ever.
You are elves.
Yeah, so?
You live in a tree.
Oh, and so it logically follows that we bake crackers? Is that it, monkey boy?
Well, if you don't bake, what do you do?
Tech support. Now beat it.
Scram.
Check that tree over there.
It's a crying shame so many Americans don't know where basic foods come from. Take crackers. Few edibles have as rich a history, are as easy to make, or as satisfying to much, and yet the average Joe would not for one consider busting out a batch from scratch. Too bad, too, because homemade crackers are... years ago, a hard cracker-like bread called hardtack was the standard kibble for sailors and fighting men worldwide. Hardtack was baked twice in the process. The French called biscuit, which is where the English later got the word biscuit. Anyway, the drying made hardtack impervious to spoilage and almost impossible to eat without breaking teeth. Then, in 1801, a ship's cook named Josiah Bent concocted a thinner, more delicate version of hardtack called water cracker. Before long, barrelfuls of these crackers were being shipped to general stores all over the country. These barrels attracted rats, idle gossip, and Cracker Barrel philosophers. Natural science contains in itself synthetical judgments, a priori as principles. You understand that? Can't. Later in 1898, the first modern American food company was born. Nabisco not only invented national distribution and marketing, they actually figured out a way to package their crackers in freshness-friendly wax paper-lined cardboard boxes, which kept idle gossip and pesky rodents at bay. Many of the cracking good innovations of the industrial baking age are with us to this day. We still have the water cracker with its simple flavor and straightforward texture. We have the soda cracker, or saltine, which is actually leavened with yeast. The soda is simply there to counteract the acids formed during fermentation. Then we have the cream cracker, which contains a good amount of fat, but no cream. The name actually comes from the method of assembly for the dough, the creaming method. There are puffy oyster and common crackers, hearty graham crackers, more on those later. Animal crackers, which, since they contain considerable amount of sugar, actually qualify more as cookies. And here's a nice rustic, seedy, crisp table cracker. No, don't worry, we'll make more. In a medium bowl, combine 5 ounces of whole wheat flour, 4 3/4 ounces of all-purpose flour, and 1/3 cup each of sesame and poppy seeds. Now, not only will these seeds add subtle nutty flavors, they'll bring a fair amount of nutrition to the party. Sesame seeds, for instance, are a great source of manganese, copper, calcium, magnesium, iron, phosphorus, vitamin B1, zinc, and dietary fiber. Poppies taste great, and they have calcium in them, and you don't have to worry because despite what you've read online, they will not cause you to fail a workplace drug test. Trust me, in they go. All right, next, 1½ teaspoons of plain old table salt and 1½ teaspoons of aluminum-free baking powder. Let's look into that one. Basic or single action baking powders are simply a mixture of 1 part baking soda and 2 parts cream of tartar and acidic crystal harvested from inside red wine barrels. Now, when it comes into contact with water, the dissolved acid and base react, releasing carbon dioxide, thus leavening. Now, by adding sodium aluminum sulfate to be exact, the reaction is slowed so that much of the gas is released only when the dough gets good and hot. The problem is, aluminum is bitter. Now, this doesn't really matter when strong flavors like, say, chocolate are the center of the party, but in the subtle flavor landscape of the cracker, aluminum stands out in a big way. Uplock. Now, although they don't pump out as much CO2, baking powders utilizing neutrally flavored calcium acid phosphate are the way to go in this case. How do you know? Get the box and read the ingredients. Okay, so the baking powder goes in and just stir to combine with clean fingers. They're the best tools you've got. Then add 3 tablespoons of olive oil and stir in. Now, the reason for this is that we basically want to coat some of the flour particles so that when we add the water and stir, we won't create too much gluten. That will toughen up the cracker. We want it to be crisp, yes, but we don't want rock hard. So this is gonna help lubricate the situation. Now, 6.5 ounces of water and stir to combine. It's just enough to come together into an actual dough. All right, I'm gonna move this stuff out of the way. Get some flour, and we'll get this turned out. There. I'll just turn out the dough and knead a few times. Now, we're not trying to create, a pizza dough here. Just knead it long enough to make sure that all of the ingredients are thoroughly combined. There. That looks good and kind of homogenized. So now just grab your dough blade and section this up into 8 equal pieces. There, that looks good. And cover with a tea towel for, we'll say 15 to 20 minutes. That will allow time for the dough to fully hydrate. If you want to see what's so special about Graham flour, just break out your kitchen microscope and take a look. I mean, this is not just whole wheat flour, okay? The endosperm is ground very fine. It's white flour, and then the bran and germ are coarsely ground and blended back into that. So theoretically, you could whip up your own Graham flour by sifting together, I don't know, let's 2/3 of a cup of all-purpose flour, say 1/3 of a cup of coarsely ground bran, and I don't know, 1.5 teaspoons of wheat germ. But don't bother. Graham flour is relatively easy to find, certainly at health food stores and in a lot of megamarts too. Now, Old Man Graham's crackers contained nothing but this flour and water, and I've tasted those crackers, and not only would they rid you of any carnal impurities, they'll make you lose your will to live. So I've taken a few liberties with the recipe. Let's get cracking. The dry team stars 1/8 teaspoon of cinnamon, which I ground myself, I'd like you to know, 1/2 teaspoon of baking soda, 1/2 teaspoon of a kosher salt, 3/4 of a teaspoon of baking powder, and yes, this is the aluminum-free again. Then we have 1 7/8 ounces of all-purpose flour by weight, 3 ounces of dark brown sugar by weight, and 8 3/8 ounces of Graham flour by weight. Sure would be easier if we were using metric around here. Anyway, buzz that up to combine, and then we're going to introduce 3 ounces of butter to the party. Cutting the butter into 1/4-inch cubes and chilling it will help with the proper integration. Now, you see, like a pie dough, we want to keep the fat solid, okay, inside the dough. So pulse until the mixture just resembles coarse meal. There. Now time to bring the wet team to the party, beginning with 2 1/4 ounces of molasses by weight, not volumetric there, and then 1 1/2 ounces of whole milk. Weight or volume would be the same on that. And finally, 1/2 teaspoon of vanilla extract, and I use the good stuff for this. There. Clamp on the lid and pulse until you've got a nice smooth dough. You know, I bet Old Man Graham would faint if he saw so much flavor going into his crackers. There. Now, when it's done, it should kind of form a nice, smooth, well, slightly sticky ball, which is exactly what you want. Just kind of scoop it out. There. That looks perfect. Press the ball into a 1/2-inch thick disc, wrap in plastic wrap, and refrigerate for 30 minutes. Rolling out this dough is going to take a little bit of time, but we really need to get it down to an even thickness of 1/8 inch for proper baking. Now, when it comes down to cutting shapes, you can go with random avant-garde geometry simply by applying a sharp pizza cutter. But if you want real precision, factory-looking industrial crackers, you should pick up one of these little guys. An accordion cutter, which when set for 2 inches, will do this. Now, to make sure that these don't puff up in the oven due to water to steam conversion, we are going to dock the crackers. That is, we are going to, well, punch a bunch of holes into it. Now, once upon a time, medieval bakers used to use devices like this. Modern bakers tend to use something a little kinder and gentler, but, you know, this isn't a common everyday item, so we will employ a fork, thusly. Just poke each cracker about 3 times. And then trim up the edges and peel away any of the excess dough. You can always just add that back to your dough ball and roll out more later. There, onto the pan. Bake right in the middle of a 350-degree oven for 25 minutes. I would say that they would turn golden brown and delicious, but they're already golden brown. They will, however, lighten slightly when finished. When you remove the crackers from the oven, allow them to cool completely in the pans. Then just break them along the dotted line and enjoy. Or store them for up to 14 days in airtight containment.
Down with Brown!
What?
Down with Brown!
Down with Brown?
Down with Brown!
Sir, you've caught wind of what you've been doing in this den of culinary sin. Oh my.
Down with Brown!
Reverend, I didn't know your crackers.
Spit it out, Millicent. Ladies, do not swallow those crackers, whatever you do.
But how can something so good be bad?
Oh, but it is, Millicent. It is.
You know what I think? I think he's just saying that to keep us girls in our place.
Yeah.
Get him, girls.
Yeah. Get him. Those things need to go off his face anyway. Oh, hi.
May I?
Yeah, sure, go ahead. Hey. She took all my crackers. Although Americans can certainly take pride in their cracker heritage, we are not the only cracker-happy region in the world. One of the oldest crackers, lavash, is a traditional Middle Eastern flatbread, which was originally made with just flour, water, and salt, and baked in a clay or brick oven. Don't have a clay or brick oven? No problem. We'll adapt. The dry team. 1 teaspoon of regular table salt and half a teaspoon of sugar going to 14.5 ounces of all-purpose flour. That's by weight, although it would be 2.5 cups, give or take, if you were using the volumetric system. Now, 1 egg goes into a separate bowl along with 2 tablespoons of butter that's been melted and cooled slightly, and 2/3 of a cup of water, and whisk to combine. So we've got our dry team combined, we've got our wet team combined. And the wet goes into the dry, thusly. And just use your hand, yes, a clean hand, to bring that together into a dough. It almost feels like pasta dough. Just work it in the bowl, and then when you can, turn it out. And it looks kind of ragged now, but keep working it and it'll smooth out. Hey, you remember gluten? Those plastic yet elastic protein fibers that magically appear whenever wheat flour is agitated with water? Well, we need to create some of those now so that this dough will be stretchable. But we don't want the crackers to be tough, so we don't want to overdo it. As little kneading as possible. So grab your trusty dough blade and break that into thirds, roughly. Don't have to weigh it. Cover with a tea towel and wait 30 minutes. That'll allow time for the dough to fully hydrate. So set 2 aside and work 1 at a time. Put down the tea towel and then turn a sheet pan upside down and liberally butter it from one side to the other. Put the dough right in the middle, kind of give it a little squish, and then start rolling. Now, once you've rolled the dough until you've covered about 2/3 of the pan, it's time to put down the rolling pin and start stretching. Just kind of put your hand right in the middle, one hand, grab the edge with the other, and gently pull out. Now, if you can work your way around and create kind of a little lip that goes over the side of the pan, then the pan will hold it in place. And that's why we're doing this on an upside-down pan to begin with.
Place in the middle rack of a 375-degree oven for 10 to 15 minutes or until golden brown and, well, you know. If you want to do multiple racks, you could do up to 3 here, but you're going to have to rotate them around about halfway through cooking.
Remove to a cooling rack and continue with the remaining dough, being sure, of course, that the pan is cooled down before you make that next addition. Then just break them up into shapes and consume. They're jagged, they're crunchy, they're delicious, they're munchy. What do you think, fellas?
Not bad.
I figure with my baking program and your call center
And new shipping department.
we should be able to move, I don't know, maybe 200 units a week. They'll sell like hotcakes.
200? That's not even enough to fire up the jet.
Hey, but wait a minute. I know that we could... See you next time on Good Eats.